Welcome to my review of the $1,000 Death Star. It costs more money, has more pieces, more minifigures, and probably more Easter eggs than any other LEGO Star Wars set before it. I'd also argue that there's probably more controversy surrounding this one than any other LEGO Star Wars set ever. Its price, shape, and minifig quality are the three main reasons for that, and the community's nickname for this set is the Death Slice, and that's pretty fitting given what you see on the side of the box versus what people's expectations for this set probably were. But in this review, I intend to give this uniquely shaped, diorama-esque UCS set a fair shake to find out if it's worth your hard-earned $1,000 and if it ultimately lives up to LEGO's own slogan, only the best is good enough. Starting with the box art, if you can call it that, we've got the modern 18+ style black void. There are some stars and a red hue emanating from behind the Death Star, so it's a little better than nothing, but yeah, it's not that inspiring, especially when you look at it compared to every other UCS set's box art. Just blows it out of the water. You do have the Death Star text on the top left with the Death Star silhouette above it, which is weird because they've been super consistent about putting the faction logo, and in this case it would be the Imperial logo for the Death Star on their UCS sets, and I don't know why that has changed here. Don't like that. The left side of the box has a pretty cool 1:1 scale shot of the Death Star, and it shows just how thin it is, coming in at just 14 studs. They're calling it their thinnest UCS Death Star ever. I do like the touch of Imperial hallway lights though, and you'll see that wrap onto the top of the box and split up your minifig selection. On the top, you've got the Rebellion characters, and on the bottom, you've got the Imperial characters, and it's a nice way to split that up, I think, and you can see all 38 there, which we're going to go in depth on those in a little bit. On the right side of the box, we've got this very interesting Death Star picture because it's not from a movie or a game. It's just some image that they seem to have made up. And what I think of when I see this picture is Googling Death Star wallpaper for iPad, and that's what you would find on the internet. And so I don't like this picture here. I wish they used a real movie shot of the Death Star. I think that would be more fitting. This picture just feels so out of place to me. And then as we look at the back of the box, you'll see some of the scenes represented, but nowhere near all of the quote unquote 15 iconic scenes on the Death Star. So again, I feel like that side box art space could have been better utilized. And then in case you were curious, on the bottom right, they do have the exact dimensions for the build. No surprise there. It's a big one. There's only 3 tape seals holding this box together. So cutting those and opening the top flap, you're going to find an interesting image of a cutaway of the Death Star showing a lot of the internal structure, which is cool. Opening to the next couple of flaps, you're going to find a nice artistic drawing of the Death Star, Tarkin, and a quote from him. And then as you open those, you are greeted with a magnificent shot of Darth Vader from Rogue One. Now, each of these boxes are quite heavy in their own right, and they've got a simple numbering system along with a fun numbering system with the lightsaber blades lit up to represent 1, 2, and 3 boxes respectively. Pretty dang cool. You've also got the Death Star hallway light design wrapping around the entire box for each of these, and then there's like the LEGO Star Wars logo on the other side, but pretty cool as far as these internal boxes go. And then as you open each of them, you are greeted with a very interesting view from the inside of the Death Star looking out. And you'll notice there's a weird mix of scenes from actual Star Wars movies and just rendered whatever they came up with to put on these. I just think it's very odd to mix the two together, and having looked at all of the boxes now, my biggest takeaway is that this packaging just isn't very cohesive to me. There's a lot of different cool pieces of it, and it's like 6 different people worked on it, but nobody was actually in charge of what it was supposed to be. Like, it's all Death Star related in one way or another, but I just find it to be super not cohesive, which you might not care about, but usually I'm in favor of. Moving on, this set has an absolutely massive sticker sheet. It's literally the size of my iPad. It is unbelievable. There's a lot of great details on these stickers and fun ones, but you know, for sticker haters out there, this is probably your worst nightmare. Now, there's also 6 total instruction manuals. That's a lot of instruction manuals. It does allow you to split the build up between multiple people if you'd like, and I will say this is probably somewhere in the realm of a 20 to 24 hour build if you're an experienced builder, and certainly longer if you are not. So if you are planning on getting this one, just expect to be building for quite a while, or get some friends. Now, as you've seen me start to flip through the instruction manuals, there is a ton of information within these. It is kind of overbearing, but in a really good way. Like, it's great that LEGO has gone to the lengths that they have to give you so much information about the Death Star, and certainly about the minifigures. I like that they went into the specifics about each of the characters included in the set within the instruction manual that they are going to be built with. Like, that's really cool to me. The other thing you'll notice is each book starts by telling you which section you are going to build with that book, which I think is nice for people, as well as there's a bunch of movie shots throughout these books, which is always cool to see. So I think these are some very well done instruction manuals, and certainly add to the build experience for both casual and experienced builders. Here are all the numbered bags laid out on my table, general, it is quite a sight to behold because they barely fit. It goes number 1 through 81, and in bag 66, they actually have Emperor Palpatine as an Easter egg to Order 66. So pretty cool stuff there. As I mentioned in the intro, there are 38 minifigures included. That is by far the most ever in a LEGO Star Wars set, and that on its own is really exciting. But on top of that, a lot of these minifigures are new, they are unique, and some of them may forever remain exclusive to this $1,000 Death Star. On the flip side, there are unfortunately a lot of minifigures in this set that LEGO Star Wars has cheaped out on, which I find completely unacceptable for a set that they are charging $1,000 for and have slapped the Ultimate Collector Series name on. Don't worry though, the LEGO Star Wars minifig designer has defended all of their cheap and silly decisions, so it's okay, we can hand wave them all away. And not really, we won't be doing that in this review. We'll actually be rebutting his answers. Starting off strong with the Farm Boy Luke Skywalker, we've got a truly great minifigure here. It's the best version of this Luke they've ever done. The dark tan hair looks nice. You've got a couple of different face prints, so you can get that angry expression on there too if you'd like. They did that little bit of hip printing that allows that line to continue from the torso to the hip to the legs. That looks phenomenal. Like, that's a little thing that goes a long way on this minifig, and the leg print also looks very nice. I think this is a great character all around. Great job by LEGO on this Luke. There's, of course, another Luke included in this one with Luke Skywalker in his Stormtrooper outfit. Pretty standard look. It's got the standard Stormtrooper armor and the standard Luke Skywalker hairpiece and face. You know, nothing to write home about, but it's just another solid figure in the set that you, of course, had to have here. It does not include an extra Stormtrooper helmet for him to swap out, though, which I was a bit disappointed by. They also didn't include it in the diorama set from 2021, so there's a little precedence there, but also the last two UCS Death Stars included the extra Stormtrooper helmet, so you can see where they're cutting corners. We also have the fantastic Return of the Jedi Luke Skywalker with that great newer hairpiece. Again, a couple of face prints, all the same as the last two Lukes, and then you've got the glove on the right hand, no glove on the left hand. Nice figure overall, and that's 3 good Lukes to start us off. Princess Leia is where I think things become a little bit questionable. You've got a nice figure overall, certainly, but she does not include the swap out leg piece to go from the legs to the printed dress piece, which I would say looks much nicer for Princess Leia. The minifig designer says they went with the plain legs because, quote, it would allow her to lie down in the cell and look more natural when swinging across the chasm. And I see your excuse and counter you with a 2019 Tantive 4 set that included both the regular legs we see here on this figure and the printed dress piece that allowed fans to swap it out as they pleased. $1,000, ladies and gentlemen. The Smuggler Han Solo, I'd say, is mostly a very nice minifigure with printing going all the way down to the legs. A lot of accurate details, always nice to see, but there is some false advertising going on here with the top of his chest where you see his skin color. That's not white. It's supposed to be his skin. It's supposed to be tan as shown on the box, but that's not what you get in the set. This has been an issue for over 5 years now. When I reviewed the $10 Millennium Falcon Microfighter, I cared about it, and I certainly care about it in a $1,000 set. It's ridiculous that LEGO still can't get it right, and that they still will falsely advertise to your face that it's going to look better than it is. The other Han Solo is the Stormtrooper outfit version. You've got the same hair and head as the Smuggler, and then the standard Stormtrooper armor. He, of course, like Luke, does not include the extra helmet, which is unfortunate for $1,000. Next with Chewbacca, he's kind of the standard deal here. No extra arm printing or anything for being in a UCS set. It's just Chewbacca with his stud shooter bowcaster, which is cool, but yeah. Next, we have a new design for the older Obi-Wan Kenobi with some updated printing on the torso and legs that certainly looks nice. You've got a couple of different face prints, and you got the cape and then his blue lightsaber as his accessory. Definitely a nice minifig to plop down into the Death Star to fight against Darth Vader. And that brings us to C-3PO, who I think is one of the worst minifigs in this set. And if you're a more casual LEGO Star Wars fan, it's quite understandable that you might be wondering what I am on about. I mean, this figure has arm printing after all, and that's premium, so that means this is a good figure. Unfortunately, it's not that simple. You see, if you look down to his leg, you see those little splotches of silver, and in some cheaper sets, of course, because this is the most expensive set ever, LEGO has included a more premium version of C-3PO where the leg is dual molded. And in this set, for $1,000, they didn't do that. It's also notable that last year, for a $500 set, they also didn't do that. But they did do that for their $6 keychain of C-3PO, which you can conveniently buy with my Lego.com affiliate link in the description below. But the point, obviously, is there are sets far cheaper than this one that have included a much better C-3PO. It stands to reason that as something gets more expensive, it should only ever get better and never ever worse. And so with that mindset, I find the C-3PO to be utterly unacceptable for this $1,000 set. It, in a vacuum, isn't a bad C-3PO. Unfortunately, they have made better and have chosen not to use it here. And don't worry, the minifig designer has an excuse lined up for you guys. Here's the full quote, but the two main takeaways is that they claim that they couldn't do a dual molded leg because he might need to appear in a cheaper set, which completely flies in the face of any reasonable thinking, as this figure with the dual molded leg already appears in cheaper sets. And he also claims they had to prioritize. What exactly did they have to prioritize? Seemingly a few things that you never actually saw in the Star Wars original trilogy. This is LEGO Star Wars in 2025. Moving on though, our final good guy minifig is R2-D2. I think they've essentially perfected R2 in this format. Unless they made completely new molds for him, I don't really see what else they could do. They've even got the back printing here, of course, so nice figure included, and that rounds out our good guys. Our first Imperial is going to be Grand Moff Tarkin, who's of course great to see in the set. He's got the perfect hairpiece, a nice face print, a second more expressive face print, and surprisingly a perfectly accurate torso. He's got the rank indicator that's down pat, as well as the correct number of code cylinders. And that's a big thing because last year on Grand Admiral Thrawn, they put the wrong number of code cylinders, I guess because they thought it looked better, but they were wrong. This is both better looking and more accurate with the proper number of code cylinders. So it's nice to see the minifig designer actually realize the mistake and fix it here for the $1,000 UCS set with those Imperial details. Like, you gotta have those right for $1,000. Unfortunately, what they don't have right for $1,000 is the legs on a lot of these Imperials, and you'll see this repeated, so I'm going to mention a few more times certainly, but he doesn't have the dual molded legs to properly represent the boots. We did see those in the 2019 UCS Imperial Star Destroyer, where its Imperial officer got the dual molded leg treatment, but these ones aren't going to. Saying you had to prioritize things like a new color wig piece that we never actually see in the original trilogy doesn't hold any water to me as a fan spending $1,000 on your set. Grand Moff Tarkin is generally a nice minifig. This is probably the best one they've ever made, but it's not as good as it should be for $1,000. Dual molded legs needed to be here, and they weren't because LEGO's being cheap. Darth Vader is practically a perfect minifigure here with great detail on the torso, hips, and legs. You've got the arm printing. You also have that removable helmet piece that reveals a nice angry face print, as well as back of the head printing. You've got the red lightsaber as his main accessory, and yeah, it's a great Darth Vader figure. Unfortunately, I can't say the same about Palpatine. There are certainly some positive attributes here, like the newer lightning piece. I think I kind of like it compared to the old one. It's just a bit sharper and cleaner looking. They also gave him, if you will, curved hilts to hold the lightning with, but my issue with him though really comes down to the eyes. The no pupil look within colored eyes for LEGO Star Wars minifigs, to me, would denote either a zombified character or a blind character. Palpatine, in this case, is of course neither, and therefore I think this looks extremely bad. I'll say the Imperial Dignitary is a minifig I'm pleasantly surprised to see in the set. It's one of those you would always wish would be in a set like this, like a very niche kind of background character, but you never know. Could have been left on the chopping block. Fortunately, it was not here, and he looks mostly very cool. My biggest qualm with him is certainly the lack of leg printing or printing on the front of the dress piece. It just needed to be there on this figure. It's otherwise an excellent figure. The torso detail is fantastic with that bit of red popping out, adds a nice break to the all-purple design, which is something you really don't see much elsewhere in LEGO Star Wars. The face is also very nice. It's got this very like deathly looking face with the eyes sunken in, like you gotta love that. And then you've got the newer hat piece mold that they made just for him, of course, because he's got a very unique hat. So I think it's a fantastic figure, mostly besides the lack of printing on the bottom, and certainly as a character getting included in a LEGO Star Wars set for the first time, a nice one to see. I suppose I will add, I do wish there was more than one of them here. There is a second one that we see quite prominently, so I feel like there should have been two, but yeah, the one is nice. Colonel Yularen is certainly an exciting inclusion, and from the belt up, I find him to be a fantastic, accurate figure. You've got the proper rank indicator, you've got that white mustache, and a very Yularen look for his face in general. You've also got the perfect hairpiece for him, I'd say. The issue I have with Yularen, though, are his legs being all white. It's a clean look, sure, but it's an inaccurate one, and that's what we're here to talk about. In the movie, it's pretty clear that most of his legs are black, more significantly than necessitating dual molded legs, where it would just be boots. You really need all black legs for a character like this, and LEGO Star Wars, of course, defends this decision with all reliable.
We've gone with white because our previous Yularen had white legs, so just for kind of a consistency there.
I'm not entirely sure why being consistent with a decade-old minifigure from a different piece of media is relevant here, although being consistent with some other things a decade ago would definitely help LEGO Star Wars these days. The white legs just were wrong then, and they're wrong now, and all the proof you need for that is to look at Director Krennic, whose Imperial outfit is largely similar to Colonel Yularen with the addition of the cape, and they opt for all black legs with him. This is a direct inconsistency within this very set. If you want to be consistent, Why not be consistent to your current design language? Like, they've done it for director Krennic, but not for Yularen, who I believe in the actual media for Star Wars actually wear like the same outfit for their legs. So you would think the Lego versions should properly represent that sameness, but they don't. They're completely different. You just gotta love the scraping of the bottom of the barrel for the consistency excuse. Like, come on, guys, what are we doing? Colonel Yularen should have black legs. He looks nice, certainly, with white legs, but I'm arguing that it's not what looks nice or not, it's just what's accurate and what's not, and in this case, Yularen, I would say, is pretty inaccurate. Next we have Admiral Motti. This is the guy that Darth Vader chokes in the Imperial meeting room, and he's a fantastic figure with a lot of great and accurate detail. You've got the proper rank indicator as well as proper number of code cylinders. That's right, 2 on one side and 1 on the other. This is just fantastic detail to see be done accurately on a Lego Star Wars figure. You've got a couple of great face prints as well as a nice hairpiece for him. Of course, this as an Imperial officer figure in this set will fall short with the lack of dual molded legs, and ultimately to me just not good enough for $1,000, but it's still a good figure. Just in a $1,000 UCS set, it's unacceptable to not have the dual molded legs on this guy. They just should be there, but yeah, he's nice to see. Next with General Tage, we again get fantastic attention to detail on the torso with the proper rank indicator and number of code cylinders. You've got a nice face print, but you do have a horrible hairpiece. His hair in the movie is just one of the worst haircuts you're probably going to see in all of Star Wars, and yet they've given him just a normal dude's hairpiece for Lego. There's no way they didn't have a hairpiece that looked worse than this. And they actually made it look like he had nice hair. I don't know. Maybe there's not a better piece that currently exists to represent this. Could they have made a new piece for a $1,000 set? Certainly they could have, right? Don't pretend like they couldn't have. So yeah, that to me is just a shame because the hair just doesn't really match to me. And then of course, again, no dual molded legs on this guy, ultimately dragging him down below Admiral Motti. Next we have Director Krennic, who to me is just a perfect 10 out of 10 minifigure. I think he looks amazing here. Great detail on the torso. Of course, the black legs being more proper to me than the white legs on Yularen. And then he's got that great hairpiece, great couple of face prints, and the white cape draped down his back just looks so good. So I gotta say, I love the inclusion of Director Krennic here, even though he is a bit of an outsider to the set in a way, and we'll see that with where he actually ends up with the final model. He's not going to be placed within the Death Star, he'll be outside of the Death Star, but he is still a really great minifig included, and it's nice to have him because he was integral to the creation of the Death Star. On top of that, we have Galen Erso, who is also integral to the creation of the Death Star. He looks really great to me in his all green outfit. He's got a couple of very nice face prints, and there's a arm print on him on one side of him. Really great to see those type of accurate details, and perhaps even better to most people, his accessory is a printed 1x2 tile of the Death Star plans. So a very complete feeling minifigure in my opinion, and he will join Director Krennic on the Death Star display plaque and not actually on the Death Star. But really cool that they included a couple figures here that weren't exactly part of the original trilogy Death Star, but like figures we either haven't seen in a while or in Galen Erso's case have never seen. Really cool stuff. RD6 RA7 is the Imperial Protocol droid in the set. Man, this is another great figure here. I love the gold printing on the eyes. We've had that head mold before, but they didn't print the eyes. Now they do. It looks so good. Really pops with those gold eyes, and then the rest of him just with some fine detail for a protocol droid. Like, the gold really makes it to me though, because otherwise you've got an all gray kind of boring droid, but actually having the accurate eye detail really brings this one up a level. So I of course got to say RD6 RA7 is a fantastic inclusion. Great looking. The Stormtrooper is the most numerous minifigure in the set with 6 of them included, and I'd argue that's not even enough, but we'll get back to that. The design of these guys is the standard modern Stormtrooper design with the modern dual molded helmet, which is very split on in the community as to whether people like it or not. You've also got the white hip armor design, which I think is fairly clean. And yeah, if you like modern Stormtroopers, you will certainly like the design of these guys. If you don't, you won't. It's a pretty simple split there. What I find interesting about their decision-making process here is the fact that they dedicated what they communicate to be very tight constraints as far as what they can do for new pieces and prints for a set like this to Stormtrooper heads that are hidden underneath a helmet, that for 99.9% of UCS collectors that are going to display this in their collection will never be taken off. The helmets will remain on their Stormtroopers forever on display. It just doesn't make any sense to put any resources towards making new face prints for Stormtroopers. That's entirely wasteful to me when you have Imperial officers and C-3PO in the set that needed dual molded legs, and that budget could have gone there. Instead, it's gone to Stormtrooper faces. Like, I think that's incredibly silly, and I think anyone that's seriously considering spending $1,000 on this would think the same. Personally, I think they should just go with blank black heads underneath Stormtrooper helmets. That's what I grew up with, and the faces underneath the Stormtrooper helmets are not some necessity for kids' imagination. Like, you can live without them. Certainly I did, and and I think it would be better save some money and use that money elsewhere to make the set better with things you actually see, especially for a UCS set like this. I think collectors would understand. Circling back to the number of stormtroopers included, I don't think I have to make the argument that 6 isn't enough. With their advertising photo of the hangar where they actually use all 6 stormtroopers all at once, and so as a UCS display set for $1,000, if I have to put all of my stormtroopers in one scene to have it be the full proper scene, why do I not have more stormtroopers to populate other spots on my Death Star? I think that in and of itself should tell you there should be more stormtroopers here. Interestingly, the gift with purchase with this UCS Death Star, only during the first 7 days of its release, does include 2 more stormtroopers, which would bring you up to 8, which feels like a more fitting number. I think 9 or 10 is really where I'd want to be, but 8 certainly better than 6. And so if you had bought this set during the first 7 days of its release, you technically do get 8 with it, which does alleviate that a little bit. And certainly most people buying a $1,000 Death Star would already have more stormtroopers in their collection, but I think I'd argue that you should have included 2 more just to get the minifig count up to 40. A nice round 40. You would fill out the entire top of the box with 2 more as well, and I think 40 would have just really hit well. But unfortunately, they were too cheap to do that. And if you think they didn't know it, you're kidding yourself, because the proof is on the box. They have to move the stormtroopers around to different scenes to actually fill them out properly. It's kind of a shame. Next, we've got a pair of Imperial Gunners. I think these are fantastic looking minifigures, especially the helmets, just great helmet molds, and the prints on them are very nice too, with those little blue and red dots. Like that side helmet print detail is just so nice to me. However, I believe one of the faces underneath here is a new print, and it feels incredibly wasteful given how constrained they continue to claim to be when it comes to making new prints, and have taken things away like dual molded legs for Imperial officers or an extra print on the bottom half of the Imperial dignitary that we could have had, but instead we get a new face for an Imperial Gunner. Yippee. Next, we've got a couple of Imperial crew members, and if this were a standard LEGO Star Wars set, I probably wouldn't say much here, but for a $1,000 UCS set, these are not good enough. We'll start with the lack of printed arms. That's something we did see on the 2019 UCS Imperial Star Destroyers Imperial crew members, so I'm not really sure where consistency went here. The true consistency seems to be pinching pennies with LEGO Star Wars minifigures, and that's a dang shame. So no printed arms, that sucks. And to nobody's surprise, of course, there are no dual molded legs. Like I said, if this was a standard non-UCS, not $1,000 set, these are nice figures, but for $1,000, these are nowhere near good enough in my opinion. Moving on, we've got a couple of Imperial Navy troopers. I think these guys are pretty standard run-of-the-mill figures, nice helmets, nice detail and all that, but nothing to write home about in my opinion. We've also got an Imperial Navy trooper, and I have an issue with this one again. I mean, we've got a nice looking figure, nice detail and all of that. It does have a new torso with a new Imperial rank that I don't believe we've gotten before, so that's pretty cool. However, they've recolored the hat hair combo piece for no reason. Like, this is a character that you don't see in the movies, and they have found it to be more worthy of the budget for this set than giving characters arm printing or dual molded legs that we actually do see and are prominent name characters in the original trilogy. It is incredible the depths that LEGO Star Wars has fallen to and just how illogical some of the decisions are. No hardcore UCS buying, $1,000 spending LEGO Star Wars fan out there is like, oh my god, thank goodness they gave this Imperial Navy officer a new hat hair piece with a different color. No, people are just upset that you didn't give a dual molded leg to C-3PO, which, I mean, come on, what are we doing? Moving on, the Imperial Shuttle Pilot is a generally nice design with a nice hat, nice detail all throughout, and yeah, just kind of a standard figure there. We've got a couple of Imperial Royal Guards who do have some slightly updated torso prints, but are generally the same as what we've seen all throughout the history of LEGO Star Wars, still using the original helmet mold from 2001, which I think is fantastic. I don't think they need to update it, but I do think it's interesting to point out, and of course, yeah, these Royal Guards look great, no surprise here. Then we've got an Imperial Astromech in R3T6. This one accurately uses a translucent dome piece, which makes it very unique looking for an astromech droid. The rest of the body is kind of standard looking, maybe some slightly different design than you'd see with like an R4, but yeah, great looking Imperial astromech droid. Absolutely love him as a nice inclusion in the set. And then lastly, the most exciting figure in the set to a lot of people, the Hot Tub Stormtrooper from the Skywalker saga. I really never thought LEGO Star Wars would make a Hot Tub Stormtrooper, and it's fantastic that they have. Plenty of people will be fairly, I would say, upset that this is only an $1,000 set, but it's also the type of figure that certainly to this point in the history of LEGO Star Wars doesn't fit in any other set, and they just so happen to have the space to include the room for the hot tub, but that we'll see later in the review, and so getting the figure here is fantastic. He does have dual molded legs. He is in fact the only figure in the set with dual molded legs, so it's nice to see at least one minifig get that top quality budget in a $1,000 set. This is truly an amazing, fun, high quality minifigure that I think for many people will be their favorite in this entire set, which is crazy because he's not even from the movie, But it is weird that they say this is from the Skywalker saga, and yet it doesn't actually come close to matching the design from the Skywalker saga, which would be a white bathing suit with red hearts. They gave it a red bathing suit with a Imperial logo on it, which is cool. I just don't know why they try to attribute it to the game that it's clearly not actually from. It's their own design. Having looked at all 38 minifigs now, there are definitely some very good ones here, and there are unfortunately some very lackluster ones here given the $1,000 price tag and the UCS label. I think it's made all the worse from the constant excuses we get from LEGO. Meanwhile, they tout record profits year over year. At some point, something has to give, and this may be that point for many people, like not getting dual molded legs on a bunch of iconic characters so they could prioritize new face prints on a bunch of characters you don't see, as well as a new color hat hairpiece on a character you don't see in the movie. Like, it probably makes you feel a certain kind of way when you were maybe thinking about spending $1,000 on this UCS set, right? I think it just spits in the faces of the customers willing and able to spend the most possible money on a product that you sell, and it shouldn't be that way. There should be no possible way that I'm sitting here in a review talking about how bad some of the minifigs are, and you're going to tell your fans you had to prioritize making new face prints on random characters over what they would clearly want in a $1,000 UCS set. This is where we are for LEGO Star Wars in 2025. I think I'm way overestimating, but let's say at worst, $10 of cost would fix all of the minifig issues that most people have in this set. Okay, charge $1,010 for the set. That $10 doesn't feel like a big difference. The missing dual molded legs, arm prints, and more definitely do to me. And so that'll sum up my thoughts on the minifigs. A real mixed bag if there ever was one. Real quick, here's the printed display plaque and minifig stand, where you're only going to be able to place 2 of your 38 minifigs because the other 36 minifigs are intended to be inside of the Death Star. I love the addition of the computer station with the Death Star plans for Galen Erso there, and then back over that printed display plaque, it looks beautiful on the matte plate, and you've got some decent information about the Death Star. Really cool little extra display stand here. All right, here goes nothing. I think for many fans, this Death Star build invokes a sort of visceral reaction. They see a slice of the Death Star, they see a pancake, and what many people had envisioned when a rumored $1,000 Death Star popped up was a full spherical Death Star like we had seen in the past, but combining both the play version and the display version to create this true ultimate version with a paneled exterior and full playable interior. LEGO, of course, went in a completely different direction, but I'm gonna be honest, it's very defendable. This makes a lot of sense to me. I already believe that a fully paneled with an interior Death Star would be quite the engineering challenge, but I don't know if it's something that LEGO Star Wars could actually do. I've had experience with a knockoff version, and it was not fun. Like, it kind of sucked. I know LEGO, of course, could do better than they did, but still, if you look at that as sort of a concept model, the reality of a fully paneled with interior Death Star, I don't think is anywhere near as good as people want it to be or think it would be. And so LEGO had this really interesting concept model of their own that they worked off to create this, and I think that this in particular is so much better than the panels with interior because you actually get to enjoy every dollar you spent at the same time. With the other concept, at any given time, you're wasting a good portion of the money you spent on stuff you can't see because it's covered up, or stuff you're not using because you've taken the panels off. So from that perspective, I think the concept of that set has always been flawed, and I'm actually very glad looking back on it that they didn't go that way for this $1,000 set. People have also said the backside being so ugly and unfinished is a big turnoff for them, and I disagree with that being an issue on this set. It's something that 99% of buyers are going to put up against a wall or the back of a shelf and never actually see the back of the model. There's one spot in my house where I could reasonably put this set and have a fair complaint that the backside is ugly, because you would see both sides of it at one point or another during the day, but I think it's something you should display against a wall anyway. Even if the backside was pretty, I still wouldn't consider putting this here, because I would knock it off and it would fall down. That would be terrible. It's obviously fair to want LEGO to make a spherical Death Star again. However, this set at this price was never going to be that, and when they do make one, I hope it is smaller, cheaper, and really doesn't include an interior because it seems wasteful to me. So I feel like I've explained why I'm at peace with the core concept for this Death Slice model, and look, if you still don't like it, I understand. I don't mind if you don't. It is a very out there and unexpected concept for a $1,000 Death Star set. The Death Star is inherently a big round ball, and this is not a big round ball, so I can understand not liking it from that perspective, but I think the rationale behind this design is really sound, and trust me, I'm no LEGO shill, but at its core, the concept for this model I think is really reasonable, and memes aside, it's good looking. I now rest my case in defense of the Death Slice, and let's break this down section by section, scene by scene, and see if what they've put in it is actually any good. We gotta start with the most fun room in the entire Death Star. You just lift this panel away, and it reveals your hot tub room. This is incredible. Just the fact that it's a reality is insane. You've got some very nice details in here as well. There's a control panel to adjust a temperature or bubbles in your hot tub. The rubber ducky is a must-have. If you look on the shelf, it looks like there's some shampoo as well as a radio, and a couple other items to help clean yourself. Like, it's a fantastically fun little room up here. And on top of that, you can pull the entire hot tub out of this for even easier access. So you can then place your hot tub stormtrooper inside, slide it all back in. And I was ready to be disappointed that you couldn't enjoy this scene as part of the display because it's walled off and hidden, but the wall is actually like a door or breakaway wall either way. Like, you can just open it up and then you can actually see your hot tub stormtrooper fully on display. So this is clearly just incredible, and it's the type of thing you gotta have in a set that is this expensive and has this much space. Like, you just have the extra space to do something fun like this. Why not? That's awesome. Just outside of that, we've got a small hallway with a couple of studs to place some figures on if you'd like, and then we've got our first elevator door for the elevator shaft that is going to run through all 6 floors of the Death Star, and it's a really great design. The doors are really clean. The only caveat there is that the sticker at the top, and that's on all 6 floors, is really discolored. The gray doesn't match the gray, and it looks really bad. $1,000 and they can't make it look perfect? That's insane to me. They should have been printing this if they couldn't make the color match. Now, if you want to know if the lift is on your particular floor and ready to take on minifigures, you just look for this white strip indicator. That'll tell you that it's behind the door, so you just slide the door open and you're ready to place your minifigs in. It's a really clean design on the inside. It's the best elevator I've ever seen on a Lego set. Pretty incredible stuff. You look at the very top of the Death Star, you'll notice there are a couple knobs up there, a little gear system, and you just twist that, and that is going to drop your elevator down or lift it up, depending on which way you are twisting it, of course. But this allows your minifigures to traverse the set in a really creative way. Even though this isn't a play set, it's a really cool play feature. I love that. Absolutely amazing that they worked that in, because that elevator shaft allows this entire model to feel interconnected, and I just think that's really cool. On the next floor down, we've got a great little control room with a fantastic wall panel design. There's some stickers for controls, but they don't look the best in my opinion. You've also got a couple of levers that can be pulled down, and then a window that gives you a view down into the Death Star laser operations area, so pretty cool to see that. Now, outside of that little room, you've of course got another elevator, but really nothing else crazy going on that section of the floor. Where it does get crazy, though, is to the right, where you've basically got a full-size Emperor's Throne Room diorama set in the Death Star. Pretty absurd. At first glance, it is very similar to the 2023 diorama set that LEGO released. However, there are a lot of differences, including the bezel around the throne area is shrunken down a little bit. There are also just more details around it, including in the front section where it's much expanded compared to the diorama set. This is overall, in my opinion, a better representation of the scene than the diorama set, although just slightly downscaled in some areas. We'll hone in on the Emperor's chair, though, which of course is a really great design, allowing the Emperor to sit in it, and then you've got some studs to place Darth Vader and Luke in front of him to have them fight it out. Really amazing stuff. Just behind there, you've got the window that looks out into space. The window has the great print that we saw in that diorama set from 2023, and then it's also got the smaller windows surrounding it to create the rounded look. It's a really great design. It does protrude out the back of the Death Star, which could be an issue for pushing your Death Star up as close to the wall as you'd want. But as far as it looking dang good for your display, they really got it down. They've also got this section that you can have knocked down, kind of reminds me of the function from the playset in 2020. Even though this isn't a playset, they've still got features like that. Like, that's really cool to me. And even though I'd say this is a really easily accessible section of the Death Star to place your figures in and stuff, if you wanted to, you can remove the top panel with ease because it's not actually connected to anything, and then you have that full access to this section of the Death Star. Just incredible stuff. Gotta love the floating walkway as well at the front. Like, that just looks amazing to me. Just a lot of depth to this scene that you don't see in other representations of it. I think it's the best version of this scene we have ever had. And it's pretty wild to me that it's just a small part of this $1,000 set while being so expansive. I think it's pretty fair to say I like the Emperor's Throne Room here. Now, there's a little door to the right with an interesting little side room with a Death Star cannon. You do have to keep the roof removed to lift the side panel to get really easy access to this cannon, but you can put a couple of Death Star gunners out here if you wanted to, and if you did want to leave that side panel open, you can put the top panel back on while it's open, but again, it has to be removed to open or close it. Skipping back over to the Death Star's laser, you'll notice it sits at a slightly off angle to the rest of the Death Star's shell, which I think looks nice. There's also minimal gaps as you look around the edge of it. The actual green parts of the laser do look really sick, although I certainly have to express my disappointment with the use of clear studs instead of translucent green studs for that particular part. Would have looked way nicer with green there. And then, of course, there's a clear piece holding the middle main laser that they converge into and shoot off in the middle there. It looks really great as well. So I think this is a really nice laser design. It will, though, suffer from the same issues that we've seen on the previous Death Star lasers, where it can just fall off if you barely touch it. So I'd say that's expected, given it's probably impossible to build it any stronger with their current pieces. Looking behind all that, it is quite impressive to see what's holding that all up. It's a super detailed section of the build that I absolutely love, and this actually does have another Easter egg within the set. It's the fastener for the Death Star's super laser that Andor was forced to help build while in Imperial prison. And you can actually kind of make it out while the set is built, but it's a lot easier to see as you're building the set if you've got that kind of keen eyes. Just in front of that, you've got some control panels to allow them to control some more of the Death Star's laser and stuff. And then behind that, there's a window with a view of Alderaan. So just like A New Hope, you can actually have Alderaan get blown up by the Death Star. You just twist this knob on the back of the Death Star and it'll flip right over. It's really easy to do. And it's really cool. You get to decide whether or not Alderaan still exists on your Death Star set. Now, real quick, this is the first section on the set that is removable. It's not interchangeable with other sections on the set that are also removable, but you just slide it out. It gives you easy access to the studs at the back to place some of your main characters down. And unfortunately, when you go to slide it back in, the Death Star laser assembly kind of gets in the way. You can take the entire Death Star laser off and then slide it in and then put the Death Star laser back on. That works. It's just a bit of an awkward way to do things, like literally taking the whole laser off. Not ideal, but it can be done. Otherwise, like, you can't really fit your hand in there to do it. It's just too tight of a spot, so you kind of got to do it that way, at least that I've found. In the adjacent hallway, we get our first good look at the pill lights, and these are printed pieces. There's 28 of them in the set, and thank goodness they are printed, because it would be horrible if the color of grays didn't match to the rest of the bricks in the set, and also incredibly repetitive to put on 28 of the exact same stickers. So nice to see at least some quality shining through here for $1,000, and they do, even though they don't actually light up, they light up the set. It is very nice to have the pill lights on a bunch of the walls throughout the hallways of the Death Star. You will see them more throughout the review, but it's definitely worth pointing out how great of a piece this is, and I hope they continue to use this in the future with any other type of set that needs something like this. Now, just to the left of that wall, kind of hidden away, there's a great sticker of kind of a bulletin board with a bunch of messages for people walking by on the Death Star. You've got a wanted poster for Han and Leia. You've got Stormtrooper shooting lessons, which is just wonderful. You've also got a T-16 Skyhopper poster and an advertisement for the Hard Heart Cantina, which apparently is on the Death Star. It would have been pretty cool as an Easter egg build somewhere within this. Obviously, they didn't really have another room worth of space to throw away for something like that. But yeah, imagine how crazy that would have been. Anyway, that sticker, really cool. The next section has a large chasm that Luke and Leia cross using the grappling hook. There is a bar instead of a rope in this particular set. They used a rope in the last playset, but the bar does allow for 2 minifigures to hold on and be kind of posed on there however you like, because obviously if it was a rope, they would just drop down to whatever the middle point was. There's also a black knob above the section, which you can twist to move the bar without actually touching it if you wanted to. That works very well as far as posing it for your display. The walkway can also be extended and retracted as you please with very minimal sag to it. Overall, it's a really clean looking section, and it's really cool in my studio here that you can see the lights kind of effectively lit up because of the backlight of the shelving. At the end of that walkway, though, we've got a sliding door, which is going to lead into our Imperial meeting room. I think it's a beautiful room, especially the design on the back wall. It just looks so perfect to me. You've got a large black table in the middle, as well as 8 total chairs, one of them slightly different, of course, for Darth Vader, and then the 4 on the axes don't rotate, and the 4 off the 90-degree axes do rotate. They're on the swivel pieces. Now, the table in the middle is actually easily removable, and you remove it to actually place the figures in the back a little bit easier if you need to. In total, there's like 5 named characters that you can get in here at once. It leaves a few seats open, but I think it looks okay like this. I, of course, do wish there were more to fill out all of the seats with more niche name characters. That would certainly be nice, but I feel like this is enough to have the scene look good enough. But then again, this set is $1,000, and only the best is good enough, so we should have 3 more, right? That's what it should be, right? Anyway, this room is beautiful, and with the characters populating it, it looks even better, of course. Dropping to the next level, we have Darth Vader's meditation chamber, and I'll first address the fact that we never actually see this on the Death Star. We do see it in the Super Star Destroyer, but not the Death Star. But then again, you know what else we didn't see on the Death Star? A hot tub. So, you know, I think this is a pretty fair inclusion, and it's probably fair to assume something like this would have existed somewhere on the massive Death Stars. It probably was off screen somewhere, but yes, it is technically not screen accurate. Although, yeah, if you're going to put something that's not screen accurate into this set, this is probably the most fitting thing you could put here. I think it looks great for its scale, and I think it's better than you might realize at first glance. You can actually pull this entire section out, and you'll notice there are a couple of studs on the back end where you could place an Imperial officer to be approaching Darth Vader in his meditation chamber, just like we saw on the Super Star Destroyer. So I think that's really sick. You can, of course, place Darth Vader into his own meditation chamber. There's some sticker details with controls around him as well, which is nice. And then while it's not like a crazy cool function, you can actually take the top part of the meditation chamber off and place it underneath to kind of close it up around Darth Vader. It's certainly nothing fancy, but it definitely gets the job done. And then there's a couple other great things in the room here. You've got Palpatine Palpatine on the back wall communicating with Vader if you'd like. And then if you don't like that, you can flip it around and just have it be a blank screen. Now on the wall, there is what I think is the best sticker in the entire set with kind of Darth Vader's love board or whatever you want to call it. You got an incredible looking Imperial recruitment poster. You also have the N1 Starfighter, which is hanging from a string, which to me represents the fact that Darth Vader actually physically has it in this room and it's actually hanging from the ceiling, but the sticker obviously doesn't represent that depth completely, but that's what it looks like to me. You also have Padme from Geonosis, which many people will appreciate. You've got a pod race sticker with Anakin and Sebulba's pod racers to promote the Bunta Eve Classic, and then from Star Wars Summer Vacation, you got a little sticker of Vader and Palpatine there. Really sick. Just a great detail inside of here. Obviously nothing actually from any movie, but just like a fun little homage to a bunch of things that are related to Darth Vader and Anakin Skywalker. It's just another amazing, somewhat hidden wall sticker like we saw earlier. There's a functional sliding door that'll lead you out into a small hallway that again leads you to another doorway leading into the large chasm. You're going to see a walkway, this one not retractable, but at a pretty cool angle. Really dope that they were able to do that. And then you also have the tractor beam that Obi-Wan has to turn off. You've even got the levers that can be pulled down. The build for that is just so good. It's way better than anything we've ever seen for this, and the sticker detail also looks really great here. The depth that this section has, the size, like it just feels so large, even though it's really not. I think it's just the way that back wall is built that gives this whole section a great sense of scale. Moving into the next hallway, you'll see a little porthole, I guess, and that is actually a view into the center of the Death Star to the reactor. And if we take a look at the back of the Death Star, we will see the open exhaust port here leading right into the reactor, and of course Luke can blow it up. Really cool that that is represented there, and that had to be a must-have detail for them when designing this. I think it both looks good and the placement of it just couldn't be more perfect. The next sections are fairly colorful in relation to the rest of the build because their floors are this nice dark orange color. You've got the control area for the detention block with some sticker details for the control panels. You can place some Imperial officers in here or whatever you'd like. You also have the cameras at the rear directly in front of both of the turbo lifts, and it's directly behind that section that you'll find one of the best Easter eggs in the entire set with the sticker for the height of stormtroopers. Obviously a reference to when Princess Leia says Luke is a little short for stormtroopers. So you can definitely throw him on there to see how he measures up. Now, when we go over to the detention block, you've got a couple of different things going on here. First off, you've got this giant open hole, and I'll come back to this in a little bit. We'll leave that one there. Behind the gray door to the left, though, we actually have the detention cell. Now, while you can access this by shoving your fingers through this front hatch, it is difficult. It's definitely a very tight fit, and so they do have a removable wall on the side of the Death Star that allows you to pull out this entire section, and you can actually get very easy access to the little bed for Leia, a little coffee mug for her, of course some floor space for the minifigs to stand around on, and the interrogation droid can be clipped onto this clear piece, and it's very posable. You can move this thing around and have it be pointed in a really dynamic position down towards Leia if you'd like, instead of it just sitting there statically. I think it's a really important thing to this section to bring it to life. And then as we kind of head back out to the hallway, something else that brings it to life is the depth for the sticker to have the hallway just continue on down the way. Also, the way the floor is raised above the rest of the floors on this level is incredible, super accurate to what we see in the movie. Like, a lot of great attention to detail here, and we do have that hole in the wall, but again, we're coming back to that. So just below the detention block on the back, we've got yet another Easter egg with a bunch of colored studs. Of course, if you played any of the Lego Star Wars video games, you would know this is a reference to the currency from the game. Right across the way, there's also a mini kit. It's the second time we've seen a mini kit in a Lego Star Wars set, so another nice Easter egg there. There is also a section for your interrogation droid. If you don't want him to be used in the prison cell, you can actually take him and put him on this little clear piece and have him stand right here, just out of the way. Kind of cool that they were very thoughtful to allow you to kind of put it where you'd like. And then heading back into the main hallway, there's a door that slides open that allows you to bring your interrogation droid out into the world, or you can have like mouse droids fly into this room if you'd like. Whatever you want to do. It's just kind of this little hidden room into the back of the Death Star that I really do appreciate. Hallway looks very nice here, just a simple hallway design, of course, perhaps one where you can have Han and Chewie running through it, shooting at and being shot at by the stormtroopers. Below all that, fittingly on the bottom level of the Death Star, we have the Death Star trash compactor. This is a great looking section. The gray and brown definitely fit the trash compactor room. And of course, has lots of trash in the room, and this is actually where we need to go back up a couple of floors to the hole in the wall next to Leia's detention cell, and this is where you can actually throw the minifigures in and they will fall down the trash chute right into the trash compactor. That's the type of feature you dream of to see in a set like this, and they executed it. It's fantastic to see. They drop right down and in, and then you can set them up however you'd like after that. Now, the knob is hidden away on the back of the Death Star, but twisting it will close in the walls of the trash compactor, and in doing so, it will also raise the eye of the Dianaga. So the full Dianaga build isn't included like we saw in the previous UCS Death Stars, but I think this is better. The functionality of this is truly a 10 out of 10 functionality. Now, one more thing with the trash compactor is that if you're having trouble placing a minifig into or taking a minifig out of it, you can remove the section on top of it, and that gives you really easy access to the trash compactor. Now, just in front of the trash compactor, there's a very small floor section along with the blast door leading into the hangar bay. This, of course, is where Darth Vader and Obi-Wan are supposed to fight. There's a couple of studs just for them, and from certain angles, this can look really good. I think, of course, because in the movie, the trash compactor isn't directly behind them. As you look at this from like a standard angle, it looks a bit awkward to just have that as your backdrop, but from some angles, it can look really cool seeing them fight. It's just one of those compromises you got to make on a set like this, I'd say. It's definitely something they had to have represented, and they couldn't put it anywhere else. I just wish it was a bit of a prettier backdrop for this in particular. Speaking of pretty backdrops, the hangar. Oh my God, what a transition. Now, starting just inside the doorway, you've got a lot of control panels, a lot going on here because this is where R2 and C-3PO are going to try to shut down the trash compactor. So you can try to recreate that scene right in front of the bottom elevator door. There's a great build for the cargo elevator. It's a giant hole in the ground. Unfortunately, not much of an elevator here because there's no floor to it. It's more of a gaping hole in the bottom of your Death Star, unfortunately. Understandably so, but that's just what it is. I think a lot of people will be disappointed to find the white arrows on the floor are actually stickers. I think these look good, much better than any of the gray stickers on the set because the black actually color matches. But of course, it would be nice if these were printed in particular. There's also a lot of studs on the floor because you're actually going to be able to place some minifigs down to recreate the scene of the Emperor arriving off of the Imperial shuttle, which we'll get to. I love the Imperial shuttle. We'll get there though. If we look at the back wall here, you're going to see a small control panel to control the shield for the hangar. And then you're going to see that beautiful view out into space, or at least Lego's representation of space, which is so fantastic here. It's a black panel splattered with white stars, and I think it's one of the most creative outside of the box things I've seen in a Lego Star Wars set. I think they said that they originally planned to maybe leave it empty at the back and you could move the shuttle in and out that way perhaps or something, but I am so glad they did it this way. I think it's 100 times better for the way that 99% of people are going to interact with this Death Star set and put it on display. Like, who would want to see their wall looking through this? This looks way better than that. Looking at the hangar on the whole, you'll notice there's kind of a hole in it. It's definitely missing something, and that something is the GWP TIE Fighter with Imperial Hangar Rack. This is a set that LEGO is giving you for free if you buy the UCS Death Star during the first 7 days of its release. So after October 7th, 2025, you'll never have a truly complete UCS Death Star when you buy the UCS Death Star. I think that's incredibly flawed. The TIE Fighter and Imperial Hangar Rack nicely complete this room. I guess I don't find it to be integral to the experience, and I do somewhat appreciate the openness of the left side of the hangar given what we do see in the movie. Like, it does fit what it's supposed to be, but also it feels like the TIE Fighter was intended to be part of the set and they just took it away and now they're giving it back instead of actually doing a cool, good GWP with this set. And usually I wouldn't mention GWPs as part of a sets review, but this one literally connects to the set, so it's kind of important, and I don't really like that they did that, at least not the execution in this particular case. I'll be reviewing this set separately and discussing more of that in that review, but just know that there is a big empty hole here and it could be filled, but LEGO chose not to fill it for your $1,000. Unless you give them $1,000 sooner rather than later. Now that leaves me one talking point left in the hangar, the Imperial Shuttle. Hello, my baby. Hello, my honey. Hello, my ragtime gal. The UCS Imperial Shuttle is my favorite LEGO Star Wars set of all time, and this technically is a new UCS Imperial Shuttle. I'm not going to sit here and tell you this is the best Imperial Shuttle they've ever made and that it's perfect, but for its scale, I think we'd be insane not to admit how incredible this thing is. I would say the model is surprisingly sturdy as the wings are built with a snot technique, allowing you to just grab onto them and they won't break apart as you fly the ship around holding them. You can also grab the main fin on this thing, although I wouldn't recommend swooshing it too hard with that particular part because it is only attached with studs on top, because you can actually remove the top section, and there's a space for a minifig inside of this thing. I really thought my eyes were deceiving me, but you could put like Emperor Palpatine in here and actually transport him around. Like, that's crazy. You can also put the shuttle pilot in the front of this thing, but much like Palpatine, he's going to have to lay down. It's a tight fit, but it's to be expected. A shuttle looking this good at this scale and still being able to hold 2 minifigs just blows my mind. I cannot believe they were able to accomplish what they did on this thing. And did I mention this set has landing gear? Do you know how many sets people want to have landing gear and don't get landing gear? And yet this tiny Imperial shuttle, retractable landing gear, not just landing gear, retractable landing gear on this tiny Imperial shuttle. I can't gush enough about this Imperial shuttle, although I am biased. biased. I do really like Imperial shuttles in Star Wars. They're one of my favorite ships from any of the movies or shows, but yeah, I like this thing, and I hope you do too, because it's cool. Now, just to the right of where the Imperial shuttle lands is this really dope looking control room. There are a lot of stickers in here, but I actually think they really bring it to life, and because it's not the mismatched gray on gray, the colors look great here, and I think it pops nicely. You've also got a couple of chairs that can swivel around, as well as a weapons rack and a coffee mug, so really nice little side room that overlooks the hangar. Gotta love that. And that is the last room on this Death Star, but there's still a little bit more to talk about. So we have the base of the Death Star, which is mostly gray, but for anything that kind of protrudes outside of the typical Death Star design, they did use black, and that adds more stability to this thing. It's fairly stable when placed down like this. Like, you don't really have to worry about it toppling over, but I also, for as big as it is and how long it might take to rebuild it, I would not put it in a precarious position. That's for sure. I also do like the way that the hangar and the area where Obi-Wan and Vader fight kind of extends out from the rest of the Death Slice. It kind of gives you an idea of what could have been. Like, they would never make a Death Star this big, a complete sphere. That would never, ever work. But it could definitely give some people some thoughts as far as what they could build as a mock adding on to this potentially. That would be insane to see someone turn this slice into a full sphere. But yeah, I like that little bottom section, and I think the little supports are very helpful. And then interestingly, hidden within the base of the Death Star, you can actually still see it once it's built, but there's a little octane canister in here. It's just another Easter egg to have another one, and I don't know what the tally's up to, but there's a lot of Easter eggs in this set. I think that makes a build like this more fun, and also like when you show it off to your friends, it's more fun to be like, hey, look at this cool little thing. That's a little Easter egg. Anyway, a couple more big picture things on this Death Star. I love the way that they outlined all of the rooms in black. I think it looks really clean that way, and then you actually have the real Death Star exterior part in gray, and it's just a nice contrast. I like that. You also on the exterior have the trench for the trench run. That's nice that that's slightly represented there at the equator of the Death Star. And then since this is a cutaway, instead of just having this flat part of the Death Star, they actually added a lot of detail onto the outside of the Death Star as well. That just gives it a little bit more life, a little bit more depth than it would have otherwise, with maybe some pipes and different pieces of metal or whatever they're supposed to represent on the outside, the grill pieces, all that sort of fun stuff. The overall roundness of this Death Star is pretty good. I wouldn't say it's perfect. There's a couple areas that are flat that you do wish maybe you had an angle to them, especially at the top, but generally this is a very nicely rounded set, and I think unless you're really nitpicking, you'll find that this thing is more than round enough to complete a convincing circle. Now, as you've been looking at this thing, I hope you've thought to yourself, how do you pick that up? Because not only is it heavy, there's no carrying handle. You have to just kind of cradle it at the bottom with your hands, and then I like to kind of try to press my body up against it just to give it some leverage, because it is a bit top heavy. And then once it's in your hands, it can feel like it's swaying back and forth a little bit when you're moving, which is scary. So it's a little bit of a tough one to move. I'm not a huge fan of picking this thing up. And truly, it is one of those sets that you only have to pick up once in a blue moon. If that, it may sit on the same shelf in your house for 10 years. It just kind of depends on what type of person you are. But when you do move this, it feels more dangerous to carry than any other Lego Star Wars set I've ever held. It is a scary thing to move to me. Unless I'm just doing it wrong, but I can't imagine there's any other way. So as the dust settles, is the Death Slice worth $1,000? I think that it didn't matter what Lego put out as their first $1,000 set. It didn't matter if they gave all the figs dual molded legs and arm prints. It didn't matter if it was a sphere or a slice. The first $1,000 set would always be ridiculed for being too much money. It would be called overpriced, even if it was a fair value, and it may be seen as a point of no return. And hey, you might be right. Who knows what the future holds? I would say, though, as someone who has bought, built, and reviewed way too many Lego sets in my lifetime, that this set for $1,000 doesn't seem crazy to me. I don't think that they're reaching for the sky necessarily with this price. Maybe they're $50 off. I've seen a lot of people say this is a $600, $700 set. I really disagree. I really don't think it's far off from $1,000. The problem I have with the price is that you market this as your ultimate collector series, your most premium type of product for Lego Star Wars, and yet we don't actually get that when it comes to the minifigures. And I mean, some people point out how many stickers there are in this set and that it should be all prints for $1,000. I agree, but also I am not the stickler for sticklers out there. So, keep fighting that good fight, but that's not my fight. My fight is definitely with the minifigs in this one. And I just can't believe what they did for $1,000. I mean, I feel like this says it all. As crazy as it sounds, this set would be pretty easy for me to recommend, even at $1,000, if it weren't for that just handful of figures kind of holding the whole thing back. I mean, Lego knows what people want here. They know that their true UCS Star Wars $1,000 spending fans want dual molded legs. They want arm prints. They don't want new face prints on stormtroopers, and I don't know why that was seen as such an important thing to have in a UCS Death Star set that's going to be your first $1,000 set for collectors. This isn't for kids, this is for people that really love the original trilogy and want the best possible version of the product and its characters that they can get. And they didn't get that here. And so for that reason, I just kind of pull back and I'm like, yeah, but don't do it. Don't spend the $1,000. But then I look at the build and I like it when it's filled with all the figures. It definitely looks lovely. It's just, you know they're holding back on you, and they're trying to pinch every penny and try to squeeze every last percentage point of profit margin they can from this. And it's just like, why not be a little bit more generous with your biggest fans? And I feel like I come to that conclusion almost every time I review a UCS set these days. You came so far, why not just make it perfect, and then people will happily be spending $1,000 on something like this. But instead, they either unhappily spend $1,000 on it, or in the worst case scenario for Lego, they don't spend $1,000 on it and they quit your hobby and they go and they do something else, hopefully better with their time and money, So I don't know. I love the set. I hate some of the figs, and I think that's where I am on it, And I can't believe I'm saying that. When I first heard slice of the Death Star, I just couldn't believe that this is what we were going to end up with. But as soon as I saw the model, I started to feel a little bit differently about my preconceived notion for what this could be. I think all the credit has to go to the set designer on this one. He really salvaged what I think could have been a horrible, horrible set here and made it something beautiful. Obviously, the same can't be said for some of the figs, but that's a whole different conversation compared to what the set designer was actually able to do with the build here. Man, if I was going to rate this one out of 10, it's pretty tough. I love the build. I think the build is just about perfect for what it's supposed to be. The figures hold back. The price, I think, isn't unfair if it weren't for a few figs. You're looking at like an 8.5 out of 10 type of set here to me. I think this is one that like in 10 years, you may look back on as like, holy crap, that thing was incredible. That was the best set ever, even though the figures still weren't what they were supposed to be. But maybe time heals that for some people and they forget about it and they're just like, look at how cool that build is. So maybe that happens too. But anyway, that's the $1,000 Death Star. That's my review of it. If you, for some reason, decide to spend your $1,000 on this, please use my affiliate link in the description below so I can get a small percentage of that to help support the channel. This review in particular took well over 100 man-hours to produce, so your like and use of affiliate links is greatly appreciated here on the channel. And that's it for my review of the largest, most expensive LEGO Star Wars set ever. Until next time.